Okay, cool. Thank you. Hey, everyone. Thank you for coming here today. It's nice to be here for the first time. Unfortunately, I have some technical difficulties with my computer. It seems that the mouse doesn't really work. So it's going to make the presentation a bit more interesting. Normally, I do live demos. And, well, live demos have their own problems. Here are a couple of things about me that you should know. I work for JetBrains as a developer advocate. I'm specializing in the Go ID that we have called GoLand. You can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Gopher's Slack, and you can find my Russian-speaking colleagues on the Russian Gopher Slack as well. So I've listed there the contact information. You can also find us at the booth outside. So today I'm not going to speak about the IDE or what we do with the IDE. If you want, find us outside. However, today I'm going to speak about, how to build a desktop application in about 30 minutes or so. So the idea came from the fact that I go to Go conferences and I kind of don't want to see web frameworks being presented anymore or databases and so on. Not that there's anything bad with them, but I just don't want to do it. I want to see something else, like what's possible with Go. Is it possible to build a desktop application or not? So let's start with the first part. I want to establish what the terms are in terms of what's a desktop application or a GUI application and figure out the requirements for building that. I also want to see like what libraries we have out there and figure out, okay, which one should I use or should I start my own and so on, right? Okay, so let's start with the terms and requirements. Console applications are also graphical user interface applications, right? You display something on the screen, the user interacts with it. But it's not really what I want to do. It's more that kind of point and click, use menu items, use buttons and so on. And I don't want to have the console look and feel, I want to have the native look and feel. So I want to see, for example, if I'm in Windows, I want to have the Windows controls. If I'm on Mac, I want to have the Mac controls and so on. So that's what the desktop application means for me. I don't want to use C or OpenGL, mainly because I don't know C, and I don't want to start learning C. And for me, C is out of the question. And I don't want to use OpenGL as well, because it implies using C, right? So I don't want to use Electron either, because, well, everybody knows how Electron works, and it's not really resource-friendly, I would say. I don't want to use Java because I'm a Go developer, right? So there are not many other things left out there. And finally, for me, for now at least, cross-platform is optional. So I'm on Windows, the laptop is on Windows, I'm fine with building something just for Windows, right? Okay, so let's see a few of the existing libraries and what we have out there. I went to the Awesome Go page, which I highly recommend for you if you just start with Go and you want to discover some useful packages. And I started looking at them. And first thing that starts up, it's listed all alphabetically, so not to be biased against someone. It starts with an HTML and CSS library. Then, again, HTML, JavaScript, and so on and so forth. And again, HTML, JavaScript, and so on. So it really seems that HTML, JavaScript, and CSS is pretty popular, and people don't really want to build native stuff. Then we go a bit more towards things like GTK support, which starts to be a bit better. Like GTK is not really nice on Windows, but okay, I can live with that. There's the Go GTK 3 package, which works with GTK 3, right? Again, not something that I particularly like, but oh well. There's this new framework which was just released as 1.0. Again, this one kind of works. It supports OpenGL, so not really my requirements either. There's the Qt bindings, if you want to start that. There's a custom framework for an engine called Citer. Never played with it, but it seems it's, again, something along the lines of HTML and CSS. Okay. And finally, we start to have something a bit more native. It's the UI library, which is built on top of C, so not really my thing. And then I landed at the final thing that I'm going to show, promise. It's called Walk, and kind of seems to fit the bill. It's pure Go, so I don't have to do any C work. It doesn't use CGO at all, although there is a trick to that as well. But it works only on Windows. Thinking back on my requirements, that's fine, because I'm a Windows user, right? I don't have a way to test if my application will work on Mac or Linux. So with that said, I guess it's time for the demo, because I don't like slides, like, at all. So first things first. Let me see what we can do here. And because my editor works without mouse, or so we advertise it, it's a Go modules project. I'm working outside of the Go path, so that's why you'll see all the Go mode files and so on. These are some dependencies. We'll get back to that a bit later. And yeah, there's a manifest here, actually, that I should show first. So when you work with this library, you have to have this XML, which you can just copy-paste. And then that's it. Like, you don't have to worry about it. I have no idea what's in there. Should probably document, but yeah, it's not really what I want now. I know it's there. I know it's needed so that I can start my application, and that's fine. OK, back to my function. So as I said, let's start with a hello world, right? Print line, and then let's say GopherCon Russia. Whoops, I'm in the future a bit, right? And just to make sure that it's all live and it's not recorded or anything. OK, so it works, right? Let's move to something more advanced and actually see our framework that we said we want to have. So we can do something like this. We say main window. And now there are two options here. So this library implements the classic style, I guess you want to call it, which is the second one, or the declarative style for using properties, which is the first one. And I'm going to use that. OK. And if you look at the documentation itself, they say, oh, it's better to use the dot imports for this one. Sorry. So I'm going to use the dot imports as well. Now, let's say you're like me and you're like, OK, I don't know anything about this library. What should I do next? You can either look at the documentation, right? Or you can have something like this. Fill the structure recursively to detect everything. But as you can see, there's a lot of properties there. Right? So you can define pretty much anything you want. I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to just use like the minimum required things to get started. Right. So let's say we want to set a title for this, right? And let's say GopherCon Windows Calculator. OK. And then let's just start this, right? Let's see how it looks like. OK, let's put some variables. This provides us with an exit code, and it provides us with an error in the classic Go style, right? So what we can do here is say, OK, so let's handle the error, because we are Go programmers. Not nil. What do we do when we have an error which is not nil? The classic panic. So yeah, error handling at the best. And then let's just say, OK, we exit with code, exit code. OK, so this is like the minimum application that I can do. And let's run this. It takes a bit because my computer is one of those very low-powered CPU computers. As I said, I don't have a mouse, so it's a bit hard for me to show you. But somewhere here, you can see the window, right? And that's because of the defaults that we have in Go. The default value for width, height, and so on are 0. And well, we get 0. Okay, not very useful, right? Let's go back and say, okay, I want to have some size, right? And I can only have like a size structure here, and this one seems a bit more manageable. So let's do something like 800 by 400, and run again. Okay, wait for it. Ta-da! Okay, so it's a bit bigger. It starts to look like a native Windows application, right? It has the background and so on. Now, unfortunately, I won't be able to switch to it. As I said, well, I do have touchscreen, saved by the touchscreen. Okay, so let's go further. I do want to have something here, a Gopher icon, right? Or Gopher image. I swear I should learn this. Okay, so I want to have an icon for this so that I can change that nasty window looking like icon with something a bit nicer. And I can do that here as well. So icon becomes Gopher icon here, right? And let's run it again. So this is how I actually started playing with the library itself. Like it's a walkthrough on how I started playing with it. And there's a tiny Gopher there. I don't know if you can see it, but if not, see me outside after. Okay, so let's close this and move forward. Now, there's two ways to do this. I can either go and start typing and so on, or I can delete everything and put the boilerplate here and go through it. And I'll do that. So, a bit of a spoiler, but basically it's easier to do it this way when we don't have a mouse. So, what we have here now is our main window, right? And we have the same things as before. We have a minimum size and so on. There's a new property called layout. And the library itself allows you to decide what layout do you want to use for your application, how you want to structure your elements. Do you want to put them in a grid, which is basically a table? Do you want to align them horizontally or vertically? That's up to you. And if we explore the property here, we can see like, yeah, I want to have like 4 columns and some spacing between elements. Similarly, we have a property called children, which accepts a slice of widgets. And this allows us to do something a bit more funky. So this allows, well, touchscreen scroll doesn't work that well. So this allows us to add basically controls into our window and decide how we want to display elements into the window itself. And for that, I said, okay, well, I want to have a TextEdit, which allows me to do something like a hello world. And I also want to have some properties for this TextEdit, which allows me to do things like setting the font or setting some sizes for it and where the font should be displayed. So basically control it. And then I have a custom function that I created called DrawButton because it was a bit boring to like simulate a Windows calculator with some functions, right? And have to draw the button itself. So I just created a function. And basically a button in this framework has the same properties you'd expect from a button, from a real button. It has a text, it has a font property, it has an on-click property as well. And yeah, for the sake of the presentation and to actually give you some other cool ideas, I'll keep this to just logging the text of the button itself rather than doing anything complex with it. So now if we run this application instead, we will see the results of our calculator, which looks like this, right? So if I look here, with all the comments that I have in the beginning and so on, with about 105 lines of Go code, I could define my interface and how it looks like. I could define some basic functionality, not much because, well, log print line instead of actual operations. But it like it's 100 lines of code, and I have a Windows native application. What's more, to actually see that it works, so if I click here, you can see that, yeah, there's an output in my standard output, and yeah, it says 4 because I pressed the button 4, 0, 6, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's kind of it. Like, it takes, what, 5 minutes to build an application, like to start working with it? But you can do more with this library. And going through the examples themselves and so on, helped me figure out some of the other cool things that you can do. Okay. I can do a smart checkout here. I do have some some other code that I want to show you. So first, it's an image viewer. So can you do an image viewer was the next quest, because one of the applications that I most frequently use is an image viewer called IrfanView. This is actually the code that they have as an example in the library. I haven't done anything. That's why I kept the whole header there. And if I go here, let's run this and like see a more complex application running. So it starts pretty simple, right? And if I go and actually manage to get this, these are a few pictures that I took from Moscow when I came in. And let's say, yeah, I can actually view a picture. So again, this is a native application loading a picture from my computer and showing it to me on the application itself, which is pretty cool. I can start playing around with things. There's also support, if I manage to do it somehow, for multiple item selection, which is pretty hard usually, right? But you can do it. And lo and behold, you have tabs as well. So you have a tabbed application. You can do pretty complex things, I would say, with this, right? Okay. So what's next? After that, I said, oh, okay, so if I can display some static pictures, why not try and display some more advanced pictures? And for that, I have a different example. It's called camera, because it's actually going to use the camera on my computer to see this. And I was like, okay, how hard can it be, right? So the same properties as well, like create a window, make sure that everything is in place and so on. The only difference is that now we are using the GoCV package. And I'm misusing it a bit on this one, because it's like GoCV is supposed to be used for computer vision and all sorts of algorithms that make facial recognition for you or object recognition and so on and so forth. But I was like, okay, I'm just going to use it for taking the camera from my computer and display it in the application. And well, there's not much more different here. The main code basically says, okay, I have this update image, which reads an image and then transforms it somehow into what I can use inside the Walk library. And for the code itself, I have a menu here to actually start this. Again, adapted from the previous example. I have menu items, which is cool, and I have triggers for those menu items. And again, it's not a big application, it's about 100 lines of code. But what I can do with it now, well, if I don't run the previous application, that is. Sorry, wrong app. So, camera. So the application started, and let's go start, right? And this is me, right? From a Go application, saying hello. So basically that's it. In what, 100 lines of code or so, you can imagine that, well, it's 120 lines. You can imagine that with a few more lines, you can start having a bit more advanced functionality. And you can start building applications for people that might not necessarily have access to the internet, or might not be used to that, or might need to say, oh, I don't know, communicate with each other in different ways. So basically, what this library allowed me to do is to figure out a way to have that native look and feel. I don't have to use C necessarily. And it's all pretty easy to use, I would say. There's not much that you need to do per se. Kind of that's it, if you think about it. There's not much more that I can say about it, because it's, in all honesty, it's pretty simple to use. If you want to do cross-platform applications, then, as I said in the previous slide, maybe you can use libUI, for example, if you really need to. If you think about the whole idea of using HTML and JavaScript, then yeah, use some of the others. But for me, Walk was good enough. And as I said, you can find the resources on awesomego.com. It's not that you can't build Go desktop applications now, if you think about it. There are many options. The thing is, let's see what we can build as Go community, and let's get out there and contribute to those projects, start our own, or work on Go applications for desktop users as well. Yes, Go is currently used for a lot of servers. Go is currently used for a lot of databases and so on. But I think we can do more. And if anything, I've shown you in, what, 120 lines of code, something that reads the camera from the computer and possibly can stream it to somewhere else in the world if I add a few more lines to make the needed server requests. So it's doable, I would say. We are in the state where building applications for desktop works. I know I'm going to finish a bit earlier, but I want to leave you to get more coffee. So that's it for now. If you have any questions, please let me know. And thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We forget about our tradition. We give one plush gopher for the best question. So it's your chance to win one for free. We're also going to sell them, but that one is free.
Thanks for the presentation again. And the question is, does Goland use this library, Walk?
No, so we use Java. We use the IntelliJ platform because, yeah.
Okay. And do you plan to switch to Go for writing?
No such so no such plans, because we have a history of about 20 years of platform. So yeah, for us it's easy to get all the benefits that we get from that and not have to rewrite everything into our platform, into the new platform.
Thanks.
So IntelliJ has a stand in the hall, so you can ask them. More questions?
One there.
Thank you for your presentation. My question is, would you use it solution in some abstract production, or it's just proof of concept?
Yes, I would use it. So I think it's stable enough to be used. There are a few things that you might not find currently in it, but the repository itself, so at least for this library, is very active. And I'm actually using a build that was released, well, not released, but the commit was done 2 days ago, and you can frequently see commits being added. The community around it, as I said, is pretty active, and they add a lot of features. They send PRs, they get merged and so on. So I was looking at it for a while before I, presented it here. So yeah, I would say you can start doing some production applications with it.
Okay, thank you very much. But I used to use Qt in C++.
Right.
And just way, it's not declarative way, I think. So if you will develop the complex GUI application, so you have to declarate many windows, so your code with so many parameters will be awful, I think.
So there's the library itself has a converter from, I think, from the .NET format for how the forms should look like into Go code. But the benefit of it is that using the Go code itself, you can have functions like I did to generate buttons and so on and automate your interface. And it's Go code, so it means the compiler will validate everything for you. And that's a big benefit, if you ask me, compared to all the JavaScript and so on. You don't have to worry about, oh, am I missing a property or am I missing a function call or something. So that's pretty good, I would say. The other benefit of using something like this is that you can share those codes. So you can build packages on top of your forms. And then all you need to do is basically share the package as you would normally with any other Go code, and build, let's say, a package for the about form, a package for the main window, a package for menus, and so on and so forth. And then reuse it between applications, which I think it's the bigger benefit behind having something like this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hello?
Where?
Here.
Okay, you.
Thank
Hey.
you. Maybe next topic, how to write mobile app with Go in 30
Sorry,
minutes. Maybe next time topic is how to write mobile app in Go in 30 minutes.
Can you do a mobile app this way?
Sorry?
Can you do a mobile phone application this way?
Maybe?
Next year?
Maybe? If you guys have me again, why not? Let's see.
More questions?
There's you. Hey.
First of all, thank you for your talk. And like we say in Russia, let me speak from my heart. You handle user input by callbacks in old-fashioned way. So when program grows, it one way or another will arrive to station of callback hell. Maybe do you have some options to improve that in your library?
So it's not my library per se. I just found this. It's maintained by a person named Alexander Neumann. I hope I'm spelling his name right. The thing is, as I said earlier, you can organize your code around packages and expose functionality as such. And if you think about Go being the backend for this, you can also think about using, for example, channels to communicate between those forms and so on. And writing complex applications becomes a bit easier.
So it's up to user, not...
Yes, it's up to you on how you structure the code and so on. But I think the main benefit of, like, if you apply what the Go community recommends in terms of structuring your packages in terms of functionality rather than, let's say, the MVC model, then it becomes even better when you talk about a desktop application, which basically you can structure your application in packages per, let's say, window or per form, and then reuse those as needed. And yeah, as I said, you have all the functionality that Go has. So you can use channels, you can use Go routines, you can do a lot of things with it out of the box. So it's up to you on how you organize the code, but I would say it's pretty good to play with it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So, okay, my question will be really quick. Sorry. So, actually, this library is under the hood is also using some bindings to Windows API or what?
It's using syscalls.
Pure syscalls. So,
yeah, it's
theoretically, it can be made for any operating system in that way, but currently we have only for Windows.
Yeah, currently there's only Windows support from what I see. I don't know if there are any plans to do other operating systems for it. It's something I haven't checked. also, like when you have to build it, it's something I haven't shown. You do have to specify a special compiler, well, linker tag for that. It's called Windows GUI. So maybe in the future there will be options to add more on top of it and make it more cross-platform.
Okay, and your thoughts about that tool? Is it better to write tools like that for each operating system, or maybe use some well-known systems like OpenGL, Qt, and so on for building the really cross-platforms?
So it depends on what you want to achieve with that, because if you look at mobile applications, for example, right, you have Android and iOS, and usually what the recommendation for those operating systems is build applications that look and feel good to the user on that platform. So make native controls and so on available to the user. Now, they are different between the operating systems themselves, which means more work towards the user, right? I don't have a clear answer on that. There's GTK, for example, which allows you to have a similar look and feel, but across operating systems in terms of your application only, right? It depends on your target users, right? If your users regularly go from, let's say, Windows to Linux or Windows to Mac, then maybe you want to have an application that looks and feels the same regardless of the operating system. If you want your application to be frequently used, let's say Windows users mainly stick to Windows, Mac users mainly stick to Mac, then it doesn't really matter that your application looks the same between the two of them. What's important for them is to give that native feel for them. So yeah, it's a tricky question. If you look at Java, what it has, Java has the same thing. Like it provides us, the same UI across operating systems. But then again, it doesn't look better on either, right? So yeah.
Thank you.
More questions?
And on the right.
Hi, thank you for the talk. I've been to your talk 2 days ago about the Raspberry Pi and speech recognition. So my question is, are you going to use these desktop applications in your smart home or not? Or are you going to use web interfaces for all your mobile phones, iPhones, I don't know, Android devices?
So if I were to actually build an application and make it production and so on, probably I would have the backend which has the same functionality in Go, and try to go for something native on each mobile device. But then again, it depends what's important. If it's important for you to get quickly out of the way, then there are solutions, like I said earlier, to allow you to go cross-platform quickly. So yeah, it only depends on what your requirements are.
I mean, what are your intentions in your smart home?
With my smartphone, smartphone can barely hold its battery, so probably change it. That's my intention. I don't know, to be honest. I know there are a couple of libraries that work on mobile devices as well, but I haven't tried any. And last time I tried the one that was made by someone from the Google team, it didn't really work that well. So we'll see. Maybe next year.
More questions?
More questions?
Yeah. Good morning, Florin. Thank you for the great talk. I have a question regarding different capabilities that different operating systems have in regards to the user interface. Say, for example, I'm making a Windows application, and say Windows has a built-in video player.
Right.
Yeah, and then I wanted to also run on Linux with a naked X11 UI, and naturally there isn't a video player there. How does the library handle those cases?
So this library doesn't handle those cases because it's Windows only, so that's easy. But I guess you can do something like that using one of the GTK libraries that I mentioned, which then provide backends to the various operating systems, and maybe they provide, like I know there is a video control in GTK from what I remember looking at it, but I haven't dived too much into that because again I don't know C, so like if there's anything broken there I need to start learning C beforehand.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Let's do one last question.
Hi, Florin. Thank you for the talk. Things going. It's simple to build a app like calculator, but when you have a complex app with multi windows and complex grids, it's a bit of. Can I build some complex app with using library like this?
Yeah, so I don't have the screen anymore, but I can show you afterwards. The idea is that you can structure your code using, for example, structures, right, and packages. And as I was saying earlier, you can basically have a core, that's the functionality that you need, and then in terms of building the interface itself, well, you can get some helper functions that you can write for your interface. If like I was experimenting but didn't finish in time with reading like a configuration file on how the interface should look like and generate something from that. I would say that at the moment the library itself definitely needs more contributors to help it become easier to use. As I was showing back then, there are like, I don't know, 40 properties in the main window structure alone, and that's a lot of properties. So what I found while testing out the library itself is that, yes, helper functions would definitely be nice to have, and I think that's something that the community could contribute back to the project and add, and that hopefully would reduce the complexity you mentioned. The other thing is that we don't have yet any graphical user interface designer thing, so maybe that's one of those things that you can build it inside the library, like using the library controls and so on, make an application that allows you to do a form, for example, and make it easier for people to design the form. It's something that you see in, let's say, Java or in .NET and so on. I came from a Delphi background, so when I found the library, I was like, oh, okay, I can do things. It's easy to do. But then even there, you had a form designer as well.
So basically, if we're gonna build some complex app, we need to contribute to the library.
I would say it would be nice to contribute to the library. If you want to keep it closed source, that's your thing. But yeah, having a form designer, that would definitely help, and I think it would help it get traction as well. So yeah, good question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Florin, please select one best question.
Right, so I should throw it to the Gopher that had the best question. Well, I'm going to throw it to the last one. Catch.